Crowdwork is a tactical role-playing game with deck-building elements. You play as the upstart comedian Earl, who is tasked with combating other more prominent comedians who have been overtaken by cynicism. The player can move around the stage to direct their own attacks and to avoid opponents' attacks. Note cards, such as the one you see here, represent jokes that Earl can tell, which function as attacks but also as, well, jokes. The crowd might not approve of you repeating the same joke for your entire set. This is reflected in the level of laughs meter, which increases the more you play to the crowd, granting you benefits. Stand-up comedy is a strategic art, one in which the performer is rewarded for incorporating the audience and their reactions into the art itself.
Y'all didn't know I was a ventriloquist too.
The goal of Crowdwork is to combine the strategic elements of comedy with the more conventional systems and gameplay of an RPG, in order to not only create a one-of-a-kind gameplay experience, but also to tell a story that comments on the collaborative influence that performers and audiences have on this art through the exchanging of expectations and reactions. Joke types correspond to the needs of the audience. As designers, we can use this system to create challenging levels by imposing limitations on the player. For example, we can punish the player for using otherwise optimal cards by setting a harsh audience reaction to that card type. Or we can have the audience preference point the player in the direction of a unique strategy, while still allowing the player to ultimately make their own decisions. It's up to you how you balance attacking with pleasing the crowd. For the purposes of our demo level, we've chosen to simply have the crowd cycle between random preferences, so that all of the cards in the demo remain usable. What you're seeing now is the very first Crowdwork build, created for Global Game Jam on January 28, 2024. What's changed since then? Well, pretty much everything. Literally, we remade the entire game from scratch, all within a new engine. This gave us the opportunity to reappoint roles that were better suited to each team member, and assign tasks in a way that allowed everyone to focus on a specific part of the project. By refactoring the code, we were able to implement optimizations, such as state machines and a tech management system. These changes, among others, improve the game's scalability, making it better equipped to be the foundation for a much larger product. After the remake, our first broad goal during these past 2 months was to eliminate visual confusion. We changed the perspective of the playing field because in the original build, it required assets to be seen at different sizes. Now, the perspective allows for sprites to remain consistent across the screen. We created all new stage tiles, which allowed us to convey more coherent information on the stage, like attack warnings. We updated the background to be less distracting and better emphasize the playing field. We updated the boss and player sprites to better match the rest of the game's style and color scheme. We made improvements to the UI. We unified the style of different elements and changed the HP bars to instead be numerical displays above the player and enemy. Additionally, there's now a UI animation that creates a better indication of turns. We also updated these character portraits, making them easier to use for promotional material. The next goal was to expand the game's content. We added more cards and created a system to allow for status effects and field items. For example, here you can see a banana peel being thrown on the stage, which causes the enemy to trip and enter into a stunned state. Players can now properly progress through the level. In the original build, you could only fight the boss. Now there are several enemies that must be defeated first. We created better enemy AI, giving them more complicated movement and harder to predict patterns. There are now 5 different enemies, which all have slight variations in behavior. We implemented new uses for the level of laughs meter. To defeat the boss, you have to make use of special cards, which are tied to the meter. We added a tutorial. The biggest issue we found from playtesting was that the game was complicated to explain. In a similar vein, we also added a control menu for this demo. And speaking of controls, we improved controller support. You can now play the game on keyboard, controller. We even demoed the game on an arcade stick. The songs you've been hearing throughout this presentation are ones that we created since the initial build. There are now 7 songs in the game compared to only 1 in the original. We also created all sorts of sound effects which inject more life and personality into the game, as well as providing audio cues for movement and attacks. In general, we created a lot of new assets. We take a lot of pride in the fact that every asset we use is created in-house. We believe that this goes a long way in building a unique, cohesive brand that leaves a lasting impression on audiences. Lastly, we sought to lay the groundwork for a Crowdwork social media presence. The first trailer was initially uploaded on my personal YouTube channel, but it just makes sense moving forward for Crowdwork material to be posted under its own account where it's more accessible. We also set up an Instagram account where we've begun sharing insights into the game's development. These accounts allow us to build the foundation for marketing, as these platforms are great avenues for promoting products through both word of mouth and direct advertising. Let's talk about short-term goals first. Above all, we want to continue receiving player feedback. We brought Crowdwork to 2 events, including Columbus Interactive Media Festival, which were invaluable in shaping our overall vision as well as development priorities. We didn't have unique attack animations for this demo, but that's one of our biggest priorities right now. Those will go a long way in characterizing attacks and clarifying visual information. We've been working on a true deck building menu where players can select their own cards before a level. Unfortunately, it wasn't finished in time for this demo, but once it's implemented, it will grant greater player freedom, expression, and creativity. In this demo, you will instead use a pre-made deck of cards. For similar reasons, we want to expand the amount of cards and level of laugh meter functions. Anything that enhances player expression is important for this game's future. We also plan on continuing to implement quality of life changes such as a proper pause menu and in-depth settings. Those will probably come sometime soon as well. As for long-term goals, one of the first things we agreed on was that Crowdwork should have multiple levels, each with unique enemies, bosses, backgrounds, and themes. These would be connected by an overworld that also provides opportunities for the player to receive new joke cards outside of battle. This was too grand in scope for this 2-month period, but we would love for it to be one of the next big steps in development. We've also considered the potential of a 2-player versus mode. We knew that was something that was not going to be in the game at this point, but it's another thing we'd be interested in exploring. Also, we will expand our social media presence. This is the first video that will be uploaded to the Crowdwork YouTube channel. We'll be posting in-depth monthly updates here, similar to this one, so subscribe to this channel if you're interested in following development moving forward. Also, follow our Instagram page at CrowdworkGame for additional updates. You can also email us directly with questions at crowdworkgame@gmail.com. In the following week, we plan to improve our All-Star Studio itch.io page, as well as post the Crowdwork demo soundtrack on Bandcamp. We think it's important to diversify the channels through which audiences can engage with our game. Many successful games exist outside of being played. By making the soundtrack available and providing regular development updates, we allow the audience to interact with the game without playing it. Lastly, I want to thank the Georgia Game Developers Association for hosting this Best in Georgia event. It's been an honor to be recognized for our work on Crowdwork, to be given an opportunity to continue its development, and to meet the other wonderful teams who participated. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you continue to follow Crowdwork.